Thank you for joining me for another edition of Insight from My Book, where we explore ideas that strengthen our leadership, deepen our understanding, and inspire us to become wiser citizens in an ever changing world. Whether you are joining us from New York or California, Texas or Florida, Alaska or Hawaii, or from American communities serving, studying, working, or living abroad, I am honored to have you with us today. My name is Reverend Dr. Clarence R. Pearson, Sr. I am a pastor, researcher, leadership consultant, public policy observer, and author with a passion for helping individuals, communities, institutions, and nations grow through wisdom, ethical leadership, responsible citizenship, and informed decision making. Today, I would like to share another important insight from my latest book, Neither Left Nor Right: The Battle for America's Democratic Soul. Our focus today comes from Chapter 10, The Judiciary and the Fight for Ideological Control. The central lesson of this chapter is one that every American should understand. The courts exist to uphold the Constitution, not to advance the agenda of any political party. When justice is viewed only through a partisan lens, public confidence in the rule of law begins to erode. The judiciary was designed to be independent. The founders understood that democracy required more than elections. It required justice, it required fairness, it required an institution capable of interpreting the Constitution without yielding to political pressure. That institution is the judiciary. Unlike members of Congress, federal judges are not elected. Unlike presidents, they do not campaign for office. Their independence was intentional. It was designed to ensure that justice would not rise and fall with every election cycle. The judiciary serves as the guardian of constitutional principles. It protects individual rights. It resolves disputes. It limits governmental overreach. And it reminds every branch of government that no one is above the law. An independent judiciary is not a luxury. It is one of the pillars of constitutional democracy. Justice must never become partisan. Every American has the right to disagree with court decisions. Throughout our history, many Supreme Court rulings have generated passionate national debate. That is part of democracy. The danger arises when we begin believing that courts are legitimate only when they rule in our favor. If we celebrate judicial independence when we win, but reject it when we lose, we weaken one of democracy's most essential institutions. Respecting the judiciary does not require agreement with every decision. It requires confidence that disputes are resolved through constitutional processes rather than political force. The rule of law demands consistency. Our commitment to justice should never depend on whether the outcome aligns with our personal preferences, judicial appointments, and political expectations. Chapter 10 examines the increasingly intense political battles surrounding judicial appointments. Presidents nominate judges. The Senate confirms them. That process is constitutional. What has changed over time is the intensity with which judicial appointments are viewed as long-term political victories or defeats. Judges are sometimes described as liberal judges or conservative judges. While judges, like all human beings, bring their own experiences and judicial philosophies to the bench, their ultimate responsibility is not to political movements. It is to the Constitution. Citizens should expect judges to interpret the law faithfully, not to function as representatives of political parties. The judiciary loses credibility when Americans begin viewing judges primarily as political actors. Public confidence is essential. One of the most valuable assets any court possesses is not its building, its history, or even its legal authority. It is public confidence. Courts have no armies. They command no police force of their own. Their authority ultimately depends upon the willingness of citizens and public officials to respect lawful decisions. When public confidence weakens, the authority of the judiciary becomes more fragile. That is why thoughtful criticism of judicial decisions is healthy. Personal attacks on the legitimacy of the courts themselves should always be approached with caution. Strong democracies depend upon institutions that citizens trust, even when difficult decisions are rendered. Lessons from major constitutional cases. Chapter 10 also explores how deeply divided America has become over several landmark Supreme Court decisions involving abortion, voting rights, religious liberty, executive authority, and constitutional interpretation. Reasonable Americans often reach different conclusions about these issues. That diversity of opinion is not unusual. The deeper lesson lies elsewhere. The Constitution provides lawful mechanisms for addressing disagreement. Legislation, elections, constitutional amendments, judicial review, public debate. These mechanisms exist so that disputes are resolved through institutions rather than instability. Our challenge is not to eliminate disagreement, it is to preserve confidence in the constitutional process that allows disagreement to remain peaceful. The rule of law protects everyone. One of the most overlooked truths in American democracy is this: the rule of law protects everyone. It protects the powerful, it protects the vulnerable, it protects majorities, it protects minorities. It protects those with whom we agree. It protects those with whom we disagree. If the law is applied selectively, it ceases to be justice. Justice must remain impartial, blind to wealth, blind to status, blind to political affiliation. That ideal may never be perfectly achieved, but it must always remain our national aspiration. The moment justice becomes partisan, freedom itself becomes less secure. Why this matters today. This conversation matters because Americans increasingly look to the courts to resolve issues that elected officials have been unable or unwilling to resolve through legislation. As political polarization increases, the judiciary often finds itself at the center of the nation's most difficult debates. That reality places enormous responsibility upon judges. It also places responsibility upon citizens. We should evaluate judicial decisions thoughtfully, critique them respectfully, debate them vigorously, but we should also defend the institutional independence that makes constitutional government possible. An independent judiciary protects every American, even those who may disagree with its decisions. 3 questions for reflection. This week, I encourage you to reflect on 3 simple questions. 1. Do I respect the judiciary only when its decisions align with my personal views? 2. Am I committed to defending the rule of law even when I disagree with the outcome? 3. How can I encourage greater respect for constitutional institutions within my family and community? These questions are not intended to discourage healthy debate. They are intended to strengthen constitutional citizenship. Democracy flourishes when citizens combine conviction with respect for the institutions that sustain liberty. Why I wrote this chapter. I wrote this chapter because I believe America's courts remain one of the Republic's greatest safeguards. Their legitimacy does not rest upon unanimous agreement. It rests upon constitutional independence. The judiciary should never become another battlefield where every decision is viewed only through partisan lenses. America deserves better. Our children deserve to inherit courts that are respected for their integrity, judges who are trusted for their independence, and a legal system that remains committed to equal justice under law. That vision is worth protecting. In closing, let's quickly review today's insight. Today we learned 1. The judiciary was designed to remain independent from political pressure. 2. Respect for the courts does not require agreement with every judicial decision. 3. Judicial appointments should strengthen constitutional government, not partisan warfare. 4. Public confidence is one of the judiciary's greatest sources of authority. 5. The rule of law protects every citizen, regardless of political affiliation. 6. Preserving judicial independence is essential to preserving American democracy. When these principles guide our thinking, justice becomes more trusted, institutions become more resilient, and constitutional government becomes stronger. If today's insight has been meaningful to you, I encourage you to get a copy of my book, Neither Left Nor Right: The Battle for America's Democratic Soul. The book is available through Amazon and other major online booksellers. Simply search for my name, Clarence R. Pearson, to discover this and my other published works. After reading the book, I encourage you to leave an honest review to help other readers discover this important conversation. I would also be honored if you would follow my Amazon author page to stay informed about future books, leadership resources, civic education materials, and new releases. Before you go, please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and share. Together, we can strengthen respect for the Constitution, preserve the independence of our courts, promote thoughtful civic dialogue, and protect the democratic institutions that safeguard our liberty. I have been your presenter, Reverend Dr. Clarence R. Pearson, Sr., helping you transform knowledge into wisdom, conviction into character, and citizenship into impact. Thank you for joining me for this edition of Insight from my book. Until next time, remember, courts are not perfect because they are staffed by perfect people. They are essential because they provide a constitutional path for resolving our deepest disagreements peacefully. When we defend the independence of the judiciary, we defend not one political party, but the enduring promise that justice belongs to every American. God bless you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America.